Today, Peter and I are going to discuss the 19 most likely reasons you can't find a job and offer solutions on what you can do about it. Let's just start at the top. If you're a candidate who's struggling to get interview requests, it's likely that you lack the required qualifications. Now, that sounds obvious, but many candidates are applying through one click apply to hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs. And in their head, it starts to become a numbers game where you feel like you've done a lot, and you have, but if you've done a lot in the wrong direction, it's not going to matter. So before you hit apply the next time, consider whether your background and experience matches what the job description calls for.
A lot of new candidates don't realize that all experience is not transferable. People will apply to jobs thinking that, hey, I worked in this department in this company. I worked there for a little while. I should be able to move over to this other industry. And that's not always the case. Some companies, they don't recognize that. They want somebody who has skills that match up closely to what their own industry is looking for.
Now, what you can do about that is arrange informational interviews. Seek out people in the industry you want to be part of, ask for their insight, ask for their guidance, and ask for their help if appropriate. Another common reason why you may be struggling to find a job is because you're overqualified for the positions you're applying for. Now, a lot of people don't like that word, and I'm one of them. I hate hearing it. In fact, for years, I've said to hiring managers when they've used that phrase with me, do you think the employee will do too good of a job? Because that's what it immediately sounds like on the surface. But hiring managers are concerned about overqualified candidates because they don't want them to leave. And they assume that they will when something better comes along. So what you can do about that, if you think that's what's happening to you, is reach out and try to connect with hiring managers directly when you apply. Reach out and try to speak directly with the recruiter who's on the position. If you can figure out who that is based on the job description, even calling directly in the company. The goal of doing so is to tell your personal story and explain why, despite looking overqualified on paper, you're applying for that job. And you can also consider changing the title on your resume a little bit. Job titles are somewhat subjective, so you can be flexible with them and consider having them match the job that you're applying for.
I don't think it's any secret that competition is extremely fierce in the job market right now. There are many, many applications to jobs as soon as they're being posted. In a lot of, you look at jobs on LinkedIn that will have been posted maybe an hour ago, suddenly they have hundreds of applications. So how can you get ahead in a market that is so saturated like that? Number one, signing up for email alert. That's going to put you right on the cutting edge. As soon as a job is released, the notification straight to your email box. But when you're applying, sending your resumes directly to the manager whenever you're able to. That's going to be something that's going to help you stand out a little bit above the crowd. And then making sure that you're targeting only jobs that you're really qualified for, and then applying to those jobs as soon as you see them. That's a huge thing right now, making sure that you aren't just shotgunning approach to every single job out there, but you are targeting ones that you are extremely qualified for.
If you're applying to a lot of jobs and not hearing anything back, there's a good chance your resume has red flags. So what are some of those? Well, multiple jobs in a short time frame. Employers don't like job hoppers. There may be a great reason why you have lots of jobs on your resume, but it's going to put you at a disadvantage. Another thing are gaps in employment. Again, there's many good reasons for it, but on the surface, it is a red flag to recruiters. Overlapping dates of employment, typos and bad grammar, and anything that's conflicting or confusing to the reader, all of those things can work against you. So look at your resume, try to look at it through the lens of a hiring manager or recruiter, and then consider what you need to change or explain either in your summary or cover letter.
So a lot of candidates that can't find jobs, they'll ask me, what can I do? And I'll tell them that their resume needs to be stronger, making sure that you have your jobs fully listed out, that you have them in a correct format, that you have all of your job duties and description fully written out. Doing all of those things is going to make your resume a lot more robust than it probably is today. It is going to help you stand out among the crowd.
I mentioned cover letters a bit earlier. One of the reasons that may be holding you back from getting more interviews is you're not sending a cover letter at all, or you're not customizing it for the specific job you're applying for. It's a great way to stand out. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Cover letters are dated. Nobody wants to see them anymore. And that's true to a degree. If it's an old fashioned cover letter, multiple paragraphs, typed out like a boring letter, yeah, no one's going to want to read that. But you should still tell your story. Tell it in bulleted format in a concise way, maybe a handwritten note, maybe a message on LinkedIn. So don't think of a traditional cover letter, but figure out a way to tell your unique story, customize it for the specific job. That is an absolutely critical component, and that'll separate you from the pack.
One of the hard truths that comes up when talking to candidates who can't find jobs is that sometimes their interview skills need work. Uh, Not anything to be ashamed of. It's just something that a lot of people will overestimate in their ability. You should be doing practice interviews. You should be referring to typical interview questions and having some semblance of your answer prepared ahead of time because you don't want to just go into an interview cold. I don't think you want to go into it as somebody who hasn't prepared at all for it. You don't want your answers to come across rehearsed, obviously, but you should have some idea of what direction you would like to go in with certain types of questions. So spending a little bit of time up front and making sure that you have prepared is going to go a long way setting you apart.
To complement that point, a lot of candidates fall apart because they simply haven't done their homework. You need to always be prepared and do your best to understand the job, the company. Do your homework, do your research, figure out before you go into any live conversation or interview with someone from the company what their mission is, what their latest news is. Get on their website, look at their social platforms. It's inexcusable not to, and you don't want to be embarrassed by being asked a simple question about the company or about the job itself that you're not prepared to answer. And along those lines, do a little research in advance on the interviewer or interviewers. If there's more than one, look them up on LinkedIn, see what their interests are, see what their background is, find a way to connect with them personally. And that'll help once you get to the interview stage.
The truth of the world we live in, it's the truth of how people interact with each other. Whether it's right or wrong, how somebody sees you can affect your likelihood of getting chosen as the candidate for a job. So just make sure you're aware of how you come across and make any adjustments necessary to match up with the company culture and the interviewer's perception of you.
Next up, too many candidates are only applying to jobs on the generic job boards, LinkedIn, Indeed. Well, guess what? That's what everyone else is doing. So go where the competition isn't. Go directly to company websites, connect with managers and the talent acquisition team at the companies you're interested in going to work for. They're accessible on LinkedIn and maybe even places like Twitter. The more you engage, the more you can build rapport and maybe even a real relationship with someone who can give you a heads up about openings that may not be public.
To follow up on what Pete just said, make sure you are utilizing all available resources in your job search. Make sure you're reaching out to friends, mentors, old work colleagues, even friends of your parents, if that's applicable to you. All of these people can be great at helping you find a job. You never know where the next one is going to come from. You never know where an amazing opportunity is going to pop up. So make sure that you are not just following the crowds and applying on job boards and the mainstream areas. Think outside the box.
Consider everyone you know in your personal life and take advantage of them to help you out. Not everyone will like hearing this, but if you're struggling to find a job, you may not be spending enough time on your search. Looking for a job is a job. It's a full-time job, maybe even greater than full-time. Generally speaking, the more time and effort you put into your search, the right time and effort, of course, spent in the right direction, the better your results will be. Consider how you're spending your time today. Make sure you're scheduling time, block it out, plan for it, and then be aggressive in your pursuit of that next job.
You get out of it what you put into it. If you want to find a job, you should be setting aside a certain number of hours every single day to be searching for one. An issue a lot of candidates come up against when they are on their job search is that they come across as too desperate. It can be discouraging when you're applying to job after job, day after day, and you get nothing back. That's the nature of the job market right now. It frankly stinks, but you have to try and rise above that. Your feelings might be warranted, but if you keep trying and you keep approaching it with a positive attitude, it will work out for you.
As your job search drags on, it can become very frustrating. We know that. But as Peter said, you have to put a smile on your face. You have to show enthusiasm, even if you're not really feeling it. display it outwardly. It will make a huge difference in how you present yourself as a candidate. And this next one, this may sound like tough love, but so be it. It's not 2021 anymore. If you're only looking for remote jobs, you're going to limit your opportunities. Now, if you have all the time in the world and money is not a problem, by all means, hold out for the remote job. But if you're like most people and you're on the clock to find that next role, consider in person jobs. Consider going back to the office. It will make a huge difference in how effective and quick your search can be.
They say to know your worth, but the truth is for a lot of candidates that are having trouble finding jobs, their salary expectations are too high. Make sure that what you're asking matches up with the market. It matches up with whatever your skills are. If you are the only person in the world who can do a certain thing, you can make high demand. But you have to be honest with yourself about the supply and demand of the market and how many people have the exact same skill set as you and are applying for the exact same jobs as you. Do some research online and make sure you adjust your expectations accordingly.
One of the reasons that many people don't think about when it comes to having trouble finding a job is your references. Now, if you give out references directly, friends, family members, previous coworkers, they're going to be good references. No one passes along the name of someone they don't expect a good reference from. Well, recruiters know that. And whether you think this should happen or not, backdoor references are very common. And that's where a connection is made with someone who's already known to the recruiter or the hiring manager at your previous company. And you'll never even know it happened. But it's one of the reasons why it's very important when you resign from a role is don't burn bridges, go out in the best way possible because you can't control those backdoor references, but you need to acknowledge they are happening. And if there's a good chance that's happening to you, consider going back in your past and maybe apologizing for something you could have done if you think that's working against you.
This doesn't apply to all candidates, but sometimes candidates have developed a bad reputation. The job market is a lot smaller than you think in some industries. People talk. If you are somebody who has maybe job hopped a bunch or left on bad terms, you'd be surprised in finding out that reputation does get around a little bit. So you need to do some damage control before resuming your job search. It's time to take an honest look at what might be holding you back there and try to make any amendment you need to fix those issues before you continue forward.
As you said, these last few may be a little tough to swallow, very personal, impossible not to take them personally. But that sort of self reflection is really important at this point. And if you've gotten this far with us today, then you are really considering what you can do to improve your chances and improve your outcome. So good for you for taking that step. And then finally, if you've done all of these things and consider all these things, you may be missing something we haven't listed. So always ask for feedback. And if you're not doing that when a job opportunity doesn't go your way or you're turned down for a role that you were interviewing with, start doing that immediately. And maybe even go back to people you've interviewed with in the recent past, if you still can get a hold of them, and ask for that feedback. Tell them you want the brutal honesty and then take it to heart and then improve from it going forward. So, Peter, 19 things. I think we've covered them all. Is that enough?
I think we got them. Yep.
I think we did. I think we covered them all. So, everyone, thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.